On this episode of Wines to Find, we meet your hosts, Michelle and Sandy.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Sandy.
We're two sisters tasting and reviewing wines with the goal of taking the WTF out of
Wines to Find.
Welcome to the very first ever episode of Wines to Find. We are so excited to have you join us. For this introductory episode, we will be introducing ourselves and our concept for this podcast. And when we discussed where we should start, it was a total no-brainer for us both. By introducing the wines we're going to try, right?
Of course, it's always about the wine, Michelle.
Absolutely. So today, we're going to be tasting two wines. Our first is a Pinot Noir. It's a Martin Ray Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir, year 2018. And our second is a Cabernet Sauvignon, the 2017 Daou, produced in Paso Robles. Our concept for the podcast is quite simple. On each episode, we will be tasting two wines we have selected using our methodology, which we will discuss in episode 2. Those wines will be wines we've never tried before. After we have tasted, we will be reviewing and rating on whether or not we feel they are wines to find. With today being our first episode, we're cheating a little bit, since we're introducing ourselves and felt we needed also to introduce our taste in wine. So one of these is actually a personal favorite of mine. Sandy has not tried either one. After today, unless it's a special episode, every wine we try will be brand new to us. We'll be reacting to it as we live and in action.
You'll get the true reaction.
That's right. As I said just a minute ago, we're focusing episode 2 on our methodology for choosing wines. So we're not going to go too far today into that particular portion of the podcast concept. But in each episode, we will give information specific to the wines that we are tasting, as well as how and why we selected them. In addition, we will be sharing tasting notes from the winemaker that we have found, if it's available, information on the growing region, if that impacted why we made the purchase, we'll be sharing that, and what wine reviewers have said about the wines we've selected. And we'll also be providing our own review, letting you know if we think they are wines to find. And we'll be sharing that on a rating scale. Sandy, do you want to make a note of that?
Sure. Do you want me to go ahead and explain the rating scale now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Our rating scale is going to be 1 through 5 to keep it really simple. The first, number 1, is no, I would not drink it. If somebody poured it in my glass, I would just go and pour it back out. That is a no.
Thumbs down.
Find something else. Number 2, a 2 would be, it's okay. I'm not going to buy it, but I'll drink it. And number 3 is, oh, I like it. I can drink another glass of it.
Give me some more.
Yes. A number 4 is good. I like it. Okay. I might even buy this.
Yeah, you're taking note of what the name is and maybe where to find it.
Exactly. It's like, okay, what other regions? That may even be a bouncing point for us to be able to find more wines. Number 5, that's the Holy Grail. That's the great.
Love it.
Love it. Got to find it. Got to have it.
Must have a case.
So that's going to be our rating system.
In addition, for each episode, we will be having guests that span the spectrum of wine knowledge and taste that will join us. As we're tasting and talking, or sitting and sipping, as we say in the South, we will be asking our guests to share their wine story with us. This episode, Sandy and I are the guests, so we'll be telling you our personal wine stories, which also will serve as our introduction to you. We will also share some about the podcast origin story and our goals for it. But first, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about wine number 1. The concept is it's new wines we haven't tried. Well, 1, I definitely wanted it to be one that I knew, so we're going to save that for wine number 2. But wine number 1, I know Sandy likes Pinot Noir. I'm not a big fan. I did my little research. I found one that I thought that she would like, that I wanted to showcase, and I went into Total Wine and asked the guy where to find it, and he's like, oh, it's excellent. So I already have high hopes for it, that it'll be good. So I'm going to hand it over. Sandy's going to
thank you.
do the pouring
So I get to open
honors.
this up. This is a screw top. It's not a cork. And we'll go into the differences of that
And it's
in another
okay.
episode.
It's okay.
It is. It's okay. So you're going to hear a twist.
There's no
and a
gratifying
turn.
pop. That's right.
And then a little bit of chug.
And while she's pouring, I'm going to just tell you about the wine. Martin Ray Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir 2018. The winemaker's notes are, there are notes of fresh pomegranate, strawberry, ripe Bing cherry, with notes of sarsaparilla. Nice. Tart cranberry carries throughout with a touch of mace and silky refined tannins. And as far as critical acclaim, this is a James Suckling rated wine. He rated it at 94, which I think is pretty good. His note was, this is a really fresh and clean with sliced strawberries, flowers, and citrus. Medium-bodied, very poised and refined with a long, crisp finish. California brightness with French sensitivity. Drink or hold. And that's great because it's a drink now or it'll last a couple of years. So if you really like it and you buy that case, you don't feel the pressure to drink them all at once. So without further ado,
Cheers.
cheers. We're cheersing our sound technician as well, who's sitting here with us.
It has some good looking legs.
Mm-hmm.
The color is very pretty.
It has a nice aroma.
Very nice.
Oh,
Clean.
mm-hmm. It's long on the fruit, I think.
It is.
Mm-hmm. I do like it though.
The reason why I enjoy Pinot Noirs is because it goes with a multitude of different dishes. And I enjoy having wine on hand. So I tend to lean towards finding Pinots. Plus, I also have found they have not given me headaches.
Because
So
they're
I-
lighter. They're more.
Because they are lighter, so they can go with chickens or steaks. That's why I tend to lean towards that. I know I've even been told that it's a good wine for Thanksgiving because it does go with so many different flavors, such as herbs and seasonings, that it blends well with everything.
I can see that, definitely. And it's definitely not something, you could also enjoy it on a summer's day as well. It's not so heavy that you would, I'm a strict red wine in the winter, white wine in the summer kind of girl. So I kind of like the idea. Maybe I need to give Pinots a bit more of a chance.
Try it in the summer.
I
You might
will,
like
yeah.
it. All right, one more sip and then...
And then we're going to talk to Sandy about her wine story. She's going to be our first guest. And again, I did say we're going to have guests on every episode. That might not happen, but we will have guests frequently. And our intent is that they will span the spectrum of wine knowledge. So we're going to ask each one of them what their personal wine story is. And they'll be telling us what brought them to enjoy wine. So Sandy, what is your wine story?
My wine story. When Michelle said, let's do a podcast about wine, and what is your wine story? I thought, oh, wow. It's such a long story. How does it relate to grapes and wine and the seasons of life? Because when I first started enjoying wine, it was 20 years ago or so. And at the beginning of that wine is like the spring of the growing season for the grapes. They are just very new, very fresh. I started with a white Zinfandel.
Oh gosh, no.
I know, amazing. I did, but I wasn't a very big drinker, so that tends to be what people go towards for first is something very
And
simple.
back in the day,
And
that
back in
was-
the day,
in our day.
that was the drink to go to, the wine to go to. Then, as I started to enjoy that more, I had friends that lived in San Diego, and they invited us out to go for a wine tasting and tours. So I was like, I've got to learn a little bit more about wine. So I started doing some reading and some research, and it started finding out more and enjoyed learning about the wine. So
There's such a vast amount you could just really rabbit hole anywhere with it.
And
It's
this was even
amazing.
prior to the internet, so I had to use other resources. I
Was
went
it a fact check prior to Google and instant access? The internet
Right.
probably did exist, but
It
not
did.
not easy access to internet.
It did exist, but it's not at
Not at our fingertips like we just are.
you just don't go to it like you do now. So I got the Wine Encyclopedia. I ordered subscriptions to Wine Enthusiast, to Wine Spectator, you name it. I was reading about wine and I was drinking wine.
That's the best part.
So we also went from the White Zinfandel into the Merlots, which was my next stepping point. And this was even before the 2004 movie Sideways. And once I saw that movie and thought, oh no, that was my next go-to wine.
So the first two were, so we're not getting off on a good start here. White Zin and Merlot.
But that shows you everybody starts somewhere.
It does, and it's
and
different.
your palate changes, grows with the more you know and the more you learn.
And there's no judgment either. If you really like White Zin,
you like
that's
drink it. That's here at WTF. That's what we say. If you like it, drink it.
That's right.
Then as we move into a more mature season, as the grape grows, which is the summer season, then that's where I even started deciding I wanted to find out more information. My husband and I then went to Napa and went to
The Mecca.
and we did wine tastings there. We even had a tasting in a cave, which was awesome.
Oh, I'm jealous. I'm so jealous.
So then when I came back, I wanted to even do more research. One night, Scott and I had takeout Chinese, and I opened up a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. And the pairing of the Sauvignon Blanc and that Chinese takeout was absolutely spectacular.
That's when it really just clicks, when you get that just right, and you can have a demonstrative taste of what you've read about, and it really just is like, oh, aha, this is what they mean.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's
so
great.
Then I started trying to recreate that. I bought cookbooks.
You got really
into it. I bought cookbooks on what to pair with certain wines, and I even have a couple that I still have. I'll take some pictures of them and put them in your show notes because they're still available on Amazon.
Gotta love Amazon.
Yep, gotta love
Go-to
Amazon.
for everything.
Then my husband started getting into it too whenever all these flavor explosions were happening.
When all his dinners were getting yummier and there was a wine to go with it.
And there was, exactly. So we started recording and journaling what we found. And I thought, you know what? I might still have my old journal. So I went and hunted, and back from 2002, I found my original journal.
Oh, wow.
I've got a couple Sterlings in there, and there's some history. I only did that for about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, and then I stopped because, as you know, life happens. Then it becomes the fall, where the grape is harvested, and then it gets bottled and put into barrels and then bottled, and that's where I stopped being so much involved in
the growth stops.
The growth stops, and I stopped.
And it settles. It's settling, period.
Exactly. So then my husband and I went to Italy for our 25th anniversary, and we toured vineyards there, and I was able to lean on my knowledge from those previous years and experiences to where I was really able to enjoy the wine there much better. I felt comfortable purchasing wines by the case to be able to send back home because of that experience.
I got one of those bottles. And I'm sure that was a wonderful, that's one of my just dream vacations, is to be able to go and spend time on a vineyard and see production from the vine to the barrel to, and I gotta have another sip of this. Oh, you do?
Yes.
Yeah. And we haven't rated it yet. So once we'll have to do a redux on it. Full disclosure, I have to pour a little more in my glass because mine was empty.
Well, then so this is the fall, and I was like, you know what? After we got back, I could notice there was starting to become a little unsettling, like it was ready for the next stage. And then Michelle comes up and offers this idea of the podcast, and it's like, time to uncork the bottle that's been sitting,
time to enjoy,
and mature, and to enjoy even more wine.
That's what we're here for, even more wine. Well, that's great. It sounds like you've definitely put a lot of color into it. Mine is going to read like a resume. And wine is a personal story, and not at the end of the day, it's a personal taste. It's a personal story, and there's obviously experts out there who have a vast amount of knowledge, and you could spend forever and learn just a great deal of it. But you can start anywhere, and there's different levels, and we want to appeal to all levels.
Exactly. Michelle, what is your wine story?
I don't want to talk about my wine story yet.
Wait,
because we have to talk about...
let's rate our Pinot.
Yes. So what do we think? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I'm thinking it may be a 4. I like it. I would definitely buy it.
I would definitely buy it. I mean, I did buy it, but I would buy it again. It would be a 3 though.
For you, it's
three
a 3?
Yeah, but I don't like Pinot. So, I mean, the fact that I would even buy it is saying something. And I think that as we go through this, I might open my palate up more to more Pinots, and then I'd be able to have a better judge of if I really like it.
And I think this particular one actually would pair better with food. Currently, we're not eating, and I think you would get more flavor.
More notes.
Mm-hmm. I think it would really draw out some of it for you if we were eating.
I will say that I can see it definitely with a lighter meal, like a salad, or even though it's you traditionally would do even chicken, which you said they pair well with across. So
it's across the board.
Yeah. Whereas if you had a heavier, the heavier the wine, then the heavier the food has to be to complement. And I don't feel that with this.
It would not stand up to like a good Beaujolais.
No, or a barbecue or something real heavy, spicy barbecue.
No, it would not.
It wouldn't punch back the way the barbecue does, which is what a bigger, bolder, which is my preference. I like the punches. So, but I would say it's definitely solid 3 for.
Solid 3 for Michelle, 4 for Sandy. So that's our. That's our ratings.
Yep. And before we do my wine story, do we want to do wine number 2?
Sure, yeah. Let's discuss wine number 2.
So we have to chug at the last. Now I'm regretting that I have like a sip left, maybe. One of our goals here, we'll go over those, but we are all about the tasting of the wine and the enjoying of the wine. So we're not going to rush if we have to take a little pause and finish our sips. We're going to finish them, right? But while we're doing that, sound engineer can be opening our second bottle, and we'll get that nice. This one is corked, so we'll get that refreshing, satisfying sound of the bottle opening. And I can be telling you about it while he's opening it. Number 2, again, the selection. The first one was new to both of us, and that's going to be the process for all of them going forward. This one, because we're introducing ourselves, we wanted to have one that was solid and that we knew was a favorite. And this one is, that was such a letdown. That was like a well, I hope that doesn't speak to the character of this particular bottle. Now, and sometimes that happens, guys. The bottle itself might not be good. That is not indicative of the wine. It's just indicative of perhaps how it was stored.
There's some skunky ones.
Right. But this one, again, personal favorite. It's a Daou 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon, and the notes are a little lengthy. It's a 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon, and the winemaker himself says it has heady aromatics that affirm this is a serious wine for serious wine lovers. This wine displays black cherry, Zante currant, plum, and blackberry up front, complemented by dark chocolate, tobacco leaf, and cool menthol. Rounding out the nose are aromas of black olives, briarwood, fig, and dried thyme. Bold and assertive on the palate. So this is definitely going to give that punch that I was just talking about. These flavors initially are dominated by dark fruits, Bing cherries, black raspberry, plum, and pomegranate. And if you know me, Bing cherries and black raspberries are like calling my name, accompanied by high accent notes of cranberries and rhubarb. And the previous wine has cranberries, so hopefully they'll complement each other as well. Mid-palate delivers espresso and dried herbs with hints of fennel and cigar box, all seamlessly integrated together on a structure of very fine grain, plush and ripe tannins. A wine of complexity and depth with a purity of fruit and subtle layers of flavors and texture that harmonize and enhance. This wine constitutes a journey of the senses that begins with power and finishes with elegance and style. Now, that was very lengthy. Most of the wine notes that we find are not that lengthy. This winemaker is quite proud of this wine, and I have to say I agree with it. I think that it's very good. It's actually been rated by several. I'm just going to give you the critical acclaim by one, Jeb Dunnick, who I find to be a fairly... I like to follow the wines that he is reviewing and taste them because I have affinity for his taste. He says it's possibly the finest vintage to date from this cuvée. The 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon estate comes all from the estate on the west side of Paso, which is Paso Robles in California, and was brought up in new barrels. Rockstar notes of creme de cassis, spicy oak, chocolate, and graphite all flow to a full-bodied Cabernet that has sweet tannins and a beautiful balance. It's already terrific, but I suspect it will be even better with 2 to 3 years of bottle age. And we're a couple years out from it having been harvested, so we're right in that suspicion of being excellent. So if you want to do the honors and pour those as well.
Oh, sure.
That sounds nice. How exciting. Look, look, look. It's one of my favorite sounds. It smells good.
Well, Michelle, while we sip this, would you like to tell us your story and then we'll
Sure.
review the wine?
Absolutely. So I started out like anybody else. I'm embarrassed to say not only wine Zinfandel, but wine coolers. Remember those? Those don't really count, but I think we thought they did back in the day. So I thought I'd mention them.
Long time ago.
Yeah. Do they still? Well, I don't know. So anyway, I was thinking about, okay, where did I actually start having an interest in wine from, I like wine, and so I'll order it with dinner, or actually knowing that I want to make it a hobby, which I think there's a distinction. And actually, I came up with meeting my husband, I think really what started my wine story. And we're going to do a whole Valentine's episode with our husbands, and they're going to join us, and they're going to tell you their wine stories, and we're going to do a whole Valentine's thing. So I'm not going to go too far into that particular bit of it because it is combined. But I'm just going to say that we did go on a date very early on, and he took me to buy a bottle of wine, and that was part of the date experience. And he had a little bit more knowledge than I did at the time. And so he sort of exposed me to the idea of going and actually selecting a higher end, not just, whatever the grocery, and let's go. And so I'm going to leave the details of that date. It's a little bit in contention because we don't have the same recollection. That'll be the Valentine episode. But let's just say that since then and going forward, wine has been a part of our relationship, and we've always celebrated occasions with it and enjoyed it as a hobby together from the very beginning. And so that kind of started my interest and piqued my interest in wine. And like Sandy, I would journal and log our purchases. And so when you said you had your journal, I went and I found mine, and I have it too. And there's notes from both John and I in it, which is kind of fun. So we could go back and and I just looked, and one was like, buy a case. And I'm so funny. I should go try it now and see if it's probably like a 2 or 3, because your palate does grow and it enhances, and you learn more. And so back then we were newbies. But what we would do is we would notate. We would kind of go out and just get a big, we'd do it all at once. Together, it would be a thing. We'd go and get the case, or I'd go get it, and I would log them, and then I would notate the price, the date of the purchase, what we knew about the selections, if there was. And all this, again, like Sandy said, it predates smartphones and apps and instant in-your-hand information. So it was a little bit different.
A little bit of work.
Yeah. Which I still enjoy it. So
Well, that's because that's the hobby part. You
Right.
became interested and wanted to follow and see if you could grow. And what is this? Why is it so different?
Right. In contrast and compare. And if you don't have a point to start with and then go from, you're just drinking wine, right? So
Nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that either. No. So anyway, we were creating our own index and our own frame of reference for ourselves. And at the time, I actually was working for a magazine. It was a national magazine that's published right here where we live. But we also published books, and we had hats that were a gift with subscription, and we had a custom knife of the year, and we had a print of the year. And at one point, we looked around and we were like, oh, we've got kind of a lot of product, right? We were hunting and fishing magazine. That's why we had that kind of stuff, and sporting art. And so we decided one year to do a catalog. And one of the things that we did was we added wine. We did a private label wine as one of our products. And I was part of that project. And the publisher of the magazine actually had a connection with a local wine distributor. So I went with him and met the distributor. And
fun.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's a family-run business. And he, at the time, I want to say he was one of the only 2 sommeliers in South Carolina at that time.
Oh, wow.
And so we bought the wine from him. We came up with the label and made it ourselves because we were into art. So we had, little artwork on it. And then that was one of our products that we sold in
I remember that.
Yeah, I think that might have been a Christmas gift one time to everybody.
Maybe.
But so that was really cool. And again, meeting that sommelier, he was French, he was older, he was really interesting. And, we had our hobby interest in wine. And I met somebody, who was making a living and had made, was a top level to be a sommelier. And so that was really cool to me. And then we decided just as a family that I was going to take a step back professionally and work from home and do various things to earn pocket money. And one of the things that we found was there's a company that does direct sales, what do they call it? Marketing, whatever, the tiered marketing, direct sales and the tiered marketing. And that was their business model. And so I joined up and that was going to be what I was going to do. But that was a huge crash course for me because they have an incredible model for wine education. And you would buy the wines and they would give you a sample kit and you would go through and it would have tasting notes and gave you information about the winemakers and the regions and suggesting pairings and recipes. And they had lots of books that they would recommend. And so
that's where you got your education.
That's where, yeah, total crash course. And it was really, I learned a lot really fast. And, ultimately that party business model wasn't well suited for somebody who had just made the decision to not work full time and do something that takes you out of the home at night and on weekends was really counterproductive. But as I was thinking about my wine story and what at that time with us being a young family and we had just moved into a new neighborhood, we would do wine tastings and we would do blind wine tastings and we'd have people over. So wine was always just really a fun thing that we did. And it really led us to a lot of the people that we know now. And it was just, it's such a gathering people together, wine, it really is. So when I look back at that, it was a fun time and it was really, wine was a large part of that. But like you said, life takes over. And then the kids, they were middle school age. They didn't need me around so much. So I went back to work full time. And they were in activities and I was working. And it was pretty much grab a bottle at the grocery. And that was the wine that we had on hand was whatever.
Sounds a little like what I did.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm sure we're not the only ones that have done that.
Right. And, it is just like you said, the seasons of life. So whatever was either our tried and true or whatever we could find, that was just what we did. But then the kids went to college. Now we're empty nesters and we have a bunch more free time on our hands. And we looked around and, what do we like to do? And we still like to drink wine and we still like to talk about it and learn about it. So we actually found ourselves watching documentaries on winemakers and filling our time with more wine-related things. And then this past year, my daughter got a scholarship for a Maymester class that was going to be in Belgium and France. And just off the cuff, it was just like this happened in 2 days, 3 days time. I happened to mention to Sandy, Rain gets a scholarship and she's going.
I said, I want to go. I want to
go. And then suddenly I found myself, we weren't sure. We decided we were going to meet her in Paris. That's where the class ended. And the whole point was to see as much of Europe as we could and as much time as we could. And so we ended up going to France and Italy. And all of a sudden, here I am. I'm going to the wine, outside of California, the 2 wine meccas of the world. And I was like, I'm not prepared. I don't know enough about it. I haven't been doing wine enough. And I haven't, it was just terrible. So we crash coursed again. We watched a bunch of stuff on the winemakers. We learned a bunch about the regions to go and our appetite was.
Unfortunately,
I know.
We did not tour a vineyard.
Rain was the focal point of the trip and she's not yet a big wine drinker. She's still in that white Zen stage of her life.
But to me, this is not a bad part. This means I get to go again.
I know. Yeah. But my appetite was totally whetted for it again. And when I came back, it was a way to harken back to the trip and to kind of keep it going. I got really into French Bordeaux, which that's another thing for episode 2. But it just got us excited again about wine and talking about it. And we decided, to do this podcast as kind of the end result of us kind of looking around and going, well, I'm logging all these wines, you're logging all these wines, we're both really interested. Let's log them on a podcast and put it out there and see if we can find other people to join us on this journey.
Because what we found is whenever you put something out, like I like wine, you like wine, let's enjoy it together. You will find that you will have people that will expand your knowledge greatly.
Right. So this kind of nicely segues into our goals for the podcast. And my goal, number one, is to increase my palate because, like we said, the only way to sommeliers are sommeliers because they've tasted hundreds of thousands of wines, right? That's the whole thing is they've tasted and tasted and tasted and tasted, and so they've expanded. They know what they like. They've honed their skill and their taste. And I have no desire to be at that level, but I do have a desire to expand and know, oh, if I taste this little bit of this here, and I know without even knowing because it tastes like this, that maybe I can guess the region where it was grown. And that gets really fun and interesting. So that's our goal, is to taste lots of wine and to learn more about the winemakers and the different varietals and increase, my own personal frame of reference for wine. I also hope, like we said, that will bring us to a group of people that want to do the same so that we could, experience the wines together and
be a resource for others to be able to hone and find their enjoyment of wine. Right. Because we have drank a lot of wine over these past umpteen years. So we're hoping that we're going to be a good knowledge base.
Right. And we have, and when we get to methodology, you could walk into a wine store, Total Wine is an example, and it's just wall-to-wall wine. How do you even think about picking something? And you don't want to waste your money. And we've developed a good method for making sure that you're at least in the ballpark of what you might like. So you're not spending money on a bunch of ones and twos. We want you to at least get that 3, 4, 5 level of purchases and be confident when you walk in that that's what you're going to get.
That way, when you go to Italy, you can know you're buying that good case.
That's right. Yes. So that's to build a community and to have people on. We want people to kind of go, oh, hey, that's interesting, and I have a good wine story, and I'm going to share it, and then that reaches other people. So that's our goal for that. And goal number 3 is to have intentional time hanging out with my sister, because like we said, we get busy, we don't make time, we don't. Life takes over. And so at least this way we're saying, hey, we're getting together at least once a week to do this. And it's going to be fun because we're going to be drinking wine, but at least we're setting intentional time to spend together. And I think that's cool. But goal number 4. So we have a fun family story, but we want to be your wine people. And Sandy can tell you why that's funny.
Oh, I almost forgot. Yes. My middle son is very ambitious, and he wants to have a guy for everything. He wants to be the person that if he needs something done, he's just going to call someone and it will happen.
You don't want to do it.
I don't blame him when he came up with this concept. He was digging a French drain with my husband.
Oh, no.
French. So he was like, when I get older, I'm going to have a guy for this.
I would totally have a guy for that. That's not high on my list of things to do.
So we want to be your guy to help you find those
great
wines.
That's right. So we hope that, you taste a couple and you go, hey, they actually helped me find those 3, 4s, and 5s. And so I'm going to continue
to listen and see what we have.
Right. And
see
continue. And
found.
Actually what we're going to do, so what we've decided is we're going to actually publish on Mondays our 2 wines of the week, so that when you listen, if you're following and you're waiting for us to publish on Thursdays, which is when we're going to publish, you can have your wine right there and you can taste it right along with us, or just at any point you decide you have these. It'll be a good resource too to go, okay, let me see what they said about this wine before I go and spend my money on it. Because again, we're rating them and we haven't ever tried them before. So if we end up with some 1s and 2s per our palate, you'll at least know maybe I won't spend my time or money on those, unless you decide you don't like 100% our taste. It doesn't align. And that does happen. Like I don't have the same taste as Sandy 100%. But for wine number 2, what do we think?
Oh, it's a 5.
This one is a universal.
It just simply is. It's really nice. I have a hard time sometimes with Cabernets if they have a lot of tannins. This is exceptionally smooth and velvety to the mouth.
It's silky.
Really,
it's not
really nice.
Sometimes the bolder wines they have that punch and they almost overwhelm your palate and your mouth, and you're taken aback by them. This is very smooth and you has the depth of flavor, but it's not a punch in the face, and it's just excellent.
Yep, a 5. This is a good gift wine. I would give this as a gift.
Absolutely, yes. And that's another thing that we could do a whole episode on gift giving. We probably will. But that's one thing we want to help with is if you want to do and that's one of the reasons why I chose it is this is an occasion. This is our first episode. This is a big deal,
Woo-hoo!
Right? Yay! So I didn't want to just have something that it might fall flat. I wanted to have a home run, and I really do think this is a home run wine. So if you take anything from this, I didn't give the price notes. I believe it is on the higher end of our scale.
We can put it in the show notes.
It was $22 to $25 depending on where you buy it, and that's a reasonable price for the quality of the wine that is. And if you get a case, it'll be a lesser. But it really is worth, if you have a special occasion or you want to, impress somebody just a little bit, maybe on a first or second or third date. Don't know which one it was, but this would be a good one to do. In every episode, in addition to tasting the wines and talking about our wine stories, we're going to be wrapping it up with something in the wine world or in the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the wine world that we are crushing on. What our crush of the week is. What has our attention. In mine, Sandy doesn't like it. I'm sure she won't like it. Is a hat that says wine people, and we don't have video.
It's just
We're not
a little
doing videos.
hokey for
It's
me.
a little, but we want to be your wine people. So we have wine people hats. And if you are a hat person and you like hats that are fun and
I'll wear it
cute,
on a bad hair day.
for you, it's a bad hair day. Some people are really hat people. It's a great boating, and Sandy boats. So it's good.
Oh yeah, true.
So you can find them on Amazon. I think they're kind of cute. Full disclosure, I was at a holiday market, had some wine already, and I saw it, and I'm like, oh, these are so cute! And they made it into my basket and made its way home with me. So anyway, that's my wine crush. We each have a wine people hat.
Well, my wine crush is because it's allowed me to drink more wine. So anything that allows me to drink more wine is definitely going to be on my crush list.
Absolutely.
It is a program. It's a lifestyle program called Faster Way to Fat Loss. And I started it at the beginning of December over the holidays. And I found it a very easy way to not feel as if you were being too
Overwhelmed.
restricted
Okay.
of your food choices. And this can be for another time, but it's called Faster Way to Fat Loss. And it's allowed me to still be able to drink wine and not feel like I'm being deprived.
That's good, because my whole thing was I was going to do dry January, and that's out the window. And now I'm sweating to the oldies at the gym. But that's good. That's good to have a method that, and it's all about balance and moderation. And I've decided I'm going to be very French about it. And the French women are very they're going to have their wine, they're going to have their chocolate, they're just going to maybe skip lunch sometimes in order to balance out and make room. So.
Okay, I think that may be wrapping up our very first episode.
That's right. We did it. Yay! We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you'll join us next time when we talk about our methodology and go a little bit more in depth about how we select the wines and what we think are good tips and tricks for making sure that you are picking out a great wine. And we hope that you click and subscribe.